Kelly Bremner is our speaker this morning. Hi, Kelly. Kelly has lived in Emory with her two beautiful girls for the past 11-ish, might be close to 12 now. I don't know. Been here about as long as I have. She is the chair of the theater department at Emory and Henry College, and her talk today is The Power of Joy. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you, Amy. So good to see you all. I'm zooming here from Emory and Henry today because rural internet access is not reliable. I use a hotspot to work from home, and I'm out of hotspot data. So, welcome to my office. Not the best place to go to, a spiritual moment, I guess. But this is an all right spot. So, yeah, I'm gonna talk to you this morning about joy. So, here we go. Um, I'm going to begin with a quote from Jermaine Brigitta, which is: "In a world full of turmoil, remember joy is an act of resistance." I don't know about you all, but I'm struggling these days. There is so much oppression in this world right now trickling down through in the form of legislations that seem pointedly aimed at my personal moral compass, my strongly held moral compass. And more devastatingly, that legislation seems aimed most oppressingly at those I most love: my daughters, my partner, my students. And yet, there are flowers. Before I sat down to write this, I stepped out on my back deck. The home that I am blessed to live in here in Emory, Virginia, brings me so much joy. The world is in bloom, the sweetness of the smell in the air, so unmistakably the smell of spring. The flowers, some the annuals I brought to bring color this spring, my reward for finishing my grades each year. The bulbs I planted on Thanksgiving with my sister and her children, and the peony I keep checking on daily to see if she is open yet. I planted her 4 years ago, but she's never come up until this year. Hope is still in the air. Hope. And dare I say it, joy. Joy in the midst of what I can only describe at times as personal rage at what I can see in those headlines. However, I've been thinking about joy for years now, its power and its sheer force. Writer Ingrid Feder-Lee, writing on the topic of joy and its connection to resistance, writes, quote, "None of us want to be the rich people on the Titanic, sipping champagne in black tie while the water rises. But joy is fundamentally different than turning a blind eye." She goes on to describe joy as a propulsive force. She argues there's a reason why dictators tend to ban music in the arts, and especially things like dancing. She goes on to say that legislating sexuality and women comes from that same impulse to legislate joy. Why? She says what dictators know is that joy is a propulsive force, and that anything that gathers and channels that energy threatens to upend the rigid control of population. So simply put, joy can be considered resistance because it's a form of energy for change, as Audre Lorde put it. It counters and contrasts with rigidity and control of oppressive structures in a nonviolent way, end quote. Black activist Brittany Packnett describes in an article titled, quote, "I am an activist and joy is my resistance." She writes about her experiences flying to Aspen for what I'm going to call a bougie leadership conference, instead of being in Charlottesville to protest the racist statue there, where she felt like she was desperately needed. She lamented being the sole Black person in a sea of white folks at a conference in a hotel room that she could never afford on her own. But then, she says, I saw the mountains. She writes about renting a bike and cruising down huge hills in her quest to get herself a simple but amazing burger at a roadside joint. And she felt Audre Lorde's quote for the first time, true and deep. Quote, caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. That's the end of Audre Lorde's quote. Packnett writes, joy is not indulgent. Joy is defiant. Joy is a break from a news cycle that would discombobulate me if I let it. Joy is a middle finger to a bigot with a torch who wants to see me cower. Joy is a moral victory against extremism and a political win, fueling us to persist and resist. Joy is resistance to the hate that fills the front page. End quote. Looking into this idea of joy being an act of resistance and trying to find the source, I believe the first person to use this phrase, joy is an act of resistance, which now you can buy, bumper stickers. I have a sticker that rides on my computer that says this. It actually comes from a 2008 poem, I believe, by Toy Derricotte, and it's titled by that very thing. It's titled, Joy is an Act of Resistance, and it's about her fish. It's about her fish named Telly. It's part of a larger poetry book called The Telly Cycle, which is in great part about the mourning of her fish's passing. Let me share an excerpt. It's quite a long poem, but let me just share with you an excerpt of her poem. So here it is. Joy is an act of resistance. Why would a Black woman need a fish to love? Why did she need a flash of red living in the corner of her eye, as if she could love nothing up close, but had to step away from it, come back to drop a few seeds and let it grab onto her, as if it caught her on some hook that couldn't hurt? Why did she need a fish to write of? A red thorn or among the thorns that flower? What does her love have to do with 500 years of sorrow? Then joy, coming up like a small breath, a bubble. What does it have to do with the graveyards in the Atlantic and in her mother's heart? Activist Austin Channing Brown says that she pursues racial justice because it brings her joy. This does not mean it's always easy or never disappointing. It doesn't mean that she's always happy or even hopeful. It means, quote, I simply mean the pursuit of Black freedom brings me joy. And so when I talk about racial justice and the silly absurdity of white supremacy, I'm compelled to laugh. In the words of Zora Neale Hurston, I like myself when I'm laughing. And then again, when I'm looking mean and impressive, end quote. To move away from the political and to look at this from another angle, many of you know that that I go to a summer camp every summer. Let me tell you a little bit about my camp. I go as my alter ego, Dr. Pants. If you've ever seen that on my social media page, that's what this is all about. It's called Camp Good Times, and it serves the pediatric oncology community in Western Washington and Alaska. That means it serves children who have had cancer, and it serves the siblings of those children who've had cancer. And childhood cancer is not a pleasant topic. There's not a lot of joy to be found there. And when I tell folks that I do this, when I'm riding on the airplane and folks are like, where are you going? And I tell them where I'm going, most of them wince. Oh gosh, that's so sad. I don't know how you can do that. And here's the thing, what so many people don't understand is that there is nothing about that camp that is sad. It is pure joy, that place. And as I've grown older, I've come to see that the power of this camp is in this idea of joy. In this environment, joy is a different kind of resistance. Joy is an act of defiance against death itself for these children and the folks who serve them. Take that in for a second. Joy as the thing that combats the illness. It is written into the mission statement of the organization itself. And I remember the time that I really let myself take that in, that joy itself could be at the heart of a mission statement. I've been going for years at this point to this camp, and it was at a final parents program. We're all exhausted at this point, and it feels weird to invite people onto the camp property that haven't been with us for the week. But we're talking through things that are very bureaucratic, right? You know, the folks are sharing the mission statement and talking about upcoming fundraising events. And at this point, my dear friend, who goes by the name of Backpack when she's there, she was announcing from the stage, the mission statement of the organization. And this phrase just jumped out with me, and it shares with me. The mission of the Good Times Project is to affirm the joy of childhood. That's the mission, the corporate, not-for-profit mission of the entire organization. How about that? Every morning at camp, we do a flag ceremony, but instead of the American flag, we raise a camp flag and we recite our camp pledge. And here's what it is. I pledge to live life to the fullest. I promise to embrace the hope, spread the love, and feel the joy that is the good times, that is Camp Good Times. And then we scream this word, snodge, that we say over and over and over again throughout the whole week. SNOJ. That's the camp motto, the unofficial one, and it stands for Supernova of Joy. And friends, it works. I watch children on the very edge of their lives, truly healed by a week of joy. And I'm talking about simple joys here. I'm talking about camp songs. I'm talking about archery. I'm talking about arts and crafts. And there is nothing sad about any of it. It is such a privilege to be a witness to that. I tell nervous campers at their drop-off, you've probably heard that Disney World is the happiest place on earth. I'm telling you, it has nothing on this place in the week you're about to spend. If I turn this paradigm into my own world, I can see it, right? If I reflect on my moments of greatest joy, the things that I find the most life-affirming, I know that I'm supposed to say that those moments of joy come from the big things, the birth of my children, my wedding, getting a doctorate. But if it's okay, I'm going to confess that those moments are not my greatest moments of joy. My greatest moments of joy are so much simpler. My 3 girls standing hand in hand, facing the ocean, giggling as cold water touches their toes, laying on the beach under umbrella in the heat with West and watching them. Simple, pure. Floating on the lake on my back late at night, the waters in my ears rendering the entire world silent, although I know my friends are there too, the amazing clarity of the stars overhead. Running barefoot through a field full of children, smashing whipped cream all over them, giving them whipped cream to smash all over me, getting hosed down in a crowd of whipped cream covered people from a fire truck, making snow angels and chalky puddles on the field, looking for the manatees, dancing to Hamilton with my girls at midnight in the aftermath of an awful storm. Not surprisingly, I think, one of my favorite poems is that by Mary Oliver, and it's titled Don't Hesitate. And it's about joy. I'm going to share it with you and note here how she knows exactly the same thing of what the other 2 writers, Lord and Delacote, know about joy and how she shares it in poetry. Mary Oliver writes, don't hesitate. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give into it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We're not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed, but still life has possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happens better than all the riches and the power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you notice in the instant when love begins. Anyways, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb. And so as I close for today, I wonder, Is it indeed those exact moments that are part of my resistance and yours and all of ours? In those moments where we feel joy and we refuse to let the weight of the world allow us to hesitate. I don't think this can be the totality of our resistance, but I do think it can be a vital part nonetheless, to be able to find and harness that joy, to use that joy to defy death, to use that joy to refuse to be ashamed in the face of the headlines. I would say that is the sheer power of joy. Thank you.